Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Passage. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, you have Tim trying to get inside of Amy's head, and obviously kind of trying to persuade her to kind of go down the viral route and stuff like that, because he needs her, because she needs to be the 12th viral or their plan doesn't work. What he's going to get from a 12th viral, I'm not sure. I think it's also because Amy's special, but he just needs a 12th in general, because I guess at that point he'll have the maximum amount of power he needs to do what he needs. I don't know why 12 is such a significant number for him. But what's interesting is because obviously Anthony kind of confronts him. It's like, yeah, you know what I was up to. The fact of the matter is you made me into a monster and I always hate you for that, but I won't let you do the same thing to Amy. And he's like, oh, you know, the fact that you can be whatever you want to be, but when this is all said and done, we're getting out of here and she will be our 12. So leave me be and let me grieve. It's kind of like, oh yeah, let's not forget that blow he took last episode from Elizabeth choosing rather to die than be by his side, which that's the same choice that Amy has to make in this episode too, because obviously, you know, Sykes is trying to make an antiviral. It's kind of interesting because it brings up some stuff. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Basically, if she does this, it makes it so that Amy won't transform. She'll still have the benefits of the whole viral situation of like the enhanced abilities, as well as, you know, the immunity and stuff like that. I'm assuming like that, like, you know, immortality as well, slow aging. But she just won't have the vampiric aspect of it. It is interesting too. I wonder why is it that some of them have the benefit of not being completely screwed. I guess it goes back to how hard the viral ends up hitting you and just how it mixes with your DNA, because like Anthony's not too bad off and neither is Shauna. Like Tim is the one that's the most messed up, but I guess it's kind of like as it's going down further and further down in the lines, the less and less the viral has kind of affected their faces and given them that vampiric appearance that they get to just keep their natural appearance mainly, you know? So that was just kind of an interesting little detail for like Tim to kind of point out and stuff like that. But all the while this is happening, we're kind of getting like, you know, Gilder is kind of running things his way. He's trying to kick everybody out. It's like, hey, everyone here at Project Noah, most of you getting laid off, you get bonuses. And literally while this is all happening, everyone's up there partying and stuff like that. It's like, do most of the people working there not know what's in the basement? Maybe for them, they're like, I don't care, it's not my problem anymore. Yeah, getting paid, let's party type of thing. It's just kind of like, you're really carefree considering the fact is there are like almost a dozen vampires down below. Excuse me, virals. But still, I don't know. That's why I'm kind of like generally probably only certain members of the group knew about Project Noah and knew exactly what they were up to. I feel like everyone knows. So it's like, I guess, like I said, I guess it's just kind of like they're locked up down there. No problem. Turns out, I love the little twist about Gilder. I thought that was kind of neat. I figured as much. I was like, Martinez has to be like, but I thought Martinez was kind of in a situation similar to Gray, that he had gotten his head messed with and stuff like that. It's like, no, Martinez was one of the virals down below. It's like, how the hell did that happen? I mean, to be fair, because I keep forgetting, like, you don't have to actually make eye contact for them to get in your head. Because, like, Tim was able to get into Brad's head even before they even ever met, were in the same room together, you know? So it's like, man, that took some heavy. That was so interesting how that was executed. Like I said, I knew he was on the team, but I didn't expect him to be a viral. That was a nice twist on that. And Gilder felt stupid because he was the one being like, oh, I'm gonna take control of everything, this blah blah blah, that, and it's like in the end, literally everything falling apart is your fault. You were literally told by everyone, by Sykes, by Clark, to bail on this situation. But for him, it's like the power and recognition he would have gotten for being the one that kind of solved all this and everything, that's what drove him. It was all ambition. It wasn't for the greater good. Like you can make the argument like Sykes and the others, yeah, they crossed a lot of lines morally and stuff like that, but for them it was because they potentially thought it was for the greater good. His ambitions, like I said, weren't not nearly as noble and stuff like that. So that's kind of interesting. Gray continues to be kind of the one that's in, putting all this in motion just because he continues to be under Fanny's control. I mean, the control is to the point that, like, he literally was tearing at his skin when he was trying to pull his hands out of those zip ties, to the point he was bleeding a lot. Just shows you how dedicated and how powerful that compulsion is, how much of a pull Tim has on Gray. It does make you wonder what it was exactly. I mean, I guess it's like when he haunts your every waking moment and dream, it's just kind of hard not to be like, okay, I'll do what you want, just stay out of my head potentially. I guess that's one way to look at it. It's just kind of like, it's probably like a thing of like you don't sleep well anymore, all you have is nightmares and you just want it to stop, and it's like the only way he'll stop and get out of your head is if you do what he says. I am curious when it's all said and done, well, he kind of, I guess because you can also make the kind of think of it as kind of like a because typically in some canons, like Dracula kind of has like his own like Igor to a certain extent, kind of like Dr. Frankenstein has his Igor. Like, I think that's kind of what Gray kind of is for Tim. And I'm curious, is he going to keep Tim when it's all said and done? Will he eat Tim? Will Tim stay human? Will Tim be made into a viral? I think it's more so probably because they had the benefits of like, they're going to need kind of like a blade thing of like having humans do their dirty work for them during the daylight and stuff like that. So that's probably what Gray will probably serve, because he kind of works as a great servant and all that, you know. So, but to the point, he locked Sykes up, and she had just made the antiviral for Amy, so that was just to push her further and to make it so that Amy had no choice. Knocked Lila out, and they made such a point to point out that she's bleeding, which is sad, because like the fact of the matter is, when the time comes, like that's going to attract the other virals. And because the thing is, even if it isn't Amy directly, I think he's going to get his other 12th some other way, whether it's going to end up being Clark. I don't think it will be, unless I feel like it's going to either be Sykes, Clark, or Brad, who are going to end up being the 12th. It could end up being Lila, because that would be just the shittiest situation in that regard. But I think there are four people that could definitely fill that role potentially, you know? Because I doubt it would be Jonas. Like, especially after all this, Tim ain't going to want, no matter what the circumstances, even if it's going to help them, Tim is not going to want Jonas on their side after losing Elizabeth like that. Also because it's like she chose him over, you know. Also, we got an update on Lacey making her way here, because for her, she's like, oh, this must be some like divine intervention and stuff like that, because like, oh, this truck driver happens to be going in the same direction you're going in, because for her, it's all about protecting Amy. And I'm curious to see what that ultimately ends up being. Like, she might be the first person that Amy's like, she's like, you know, Amy needs to feed, and Lacey's like, feed for me. I think that might be what we end up seeing, because Lacey might, you know, because once again, they kind of played it at the beginning, like Lacey's willing to do whatever it takes because Amy needs to be around to kind of shine her light upon this world, to do what she's meant to do. So I think that in the end, you know, that's what Lacey's going to end up doing, because she's been trying to find her grand purpose, and she feels like Amy is that purpose. So she'll do whatever it takes to protect Amy. So I'm curious to see what that necessarily entails. Not unless we see a twist, oh, it ended up being her becoming the 12th or something like that, just so that Amy doesn't. We'll see. That's why I kind of figure I think that I would potentially think that's where Brad's storyline would go. But once again, it also ties into what, you know, what ends up happening between him and Lila, because they're in a good place now. Like, they kind of move past, you know, not move past, because there's no moving past what happened to them, but they're taking a step forward, essentially, you know. I did like that when even when things went the kind of shit, like, Brad still grabbed Gilder, because it's like, yeah, you're an asshole, you kind of got all this started, but the fact of the matter is, even you don't deserve to, you know, get chomped on. So that was lucky for him, because I feel like if it was Clark might be like, I kind of want to just leave you where you are. Speaking of Clark, it was kind of interesting seeing that storyline with him and Shauna, because kind of furthering his guilt and stuff like that. Shauna escaped, and she was just like, I just want to go, but he convinced her to stay. He even sat down with her with dinner. They even talked, got to know each other, and I think that in itself is what, that moment right there probably furthered it even more, the bond between Shauna and Clark. But the fact is, she learned so much about him. The fact is, his dad being a judge, his sister being in the Justice Department, and his other brother being like a surgeon or something. You know, he essentially being the black sheep of his family and stuff like that. Probably being the only person he's up to like that, because I doubt he's opened up the Sykes like that. But all of it was a ploy to kind of get her to stay there long enough, because it's like, oh, I didn't have a choice. And Shauna was like, you always have a choice. Because he was like, oh, tell me your story. I guess he ended up looking it up later on and finding out the truth about her. Just finding out, because like when it was all said and done, you know, because she had even talked about the fact is like she could relate, because you know, his dad was like a drunk, and it's like, oh, he'd be your best friend, your pal, and all that, and then the next moment he smacks you upside the head, and it's like, you know. And as we learned, like, Shauna could definitely understand that story. But I thought it was kind of interesting because Shauna was like, the fact of the matter is you've been helping us this entire time. You've been helping us just like graded. You stayed my execution. You took care of Paulson. The fact of the matter is you lied to Sykes about the nightmares and everything. And I love what he does. He kisses her and she's like, yeah, okay, you're on my side. And then he says the cool thing of like, the fact of the matter is I do care, but not about you. You aren't that girl who you used to be. Like kind of basically saying the real Shauna is dead. What's right in front of me is a monster. And if I get the chance again, I will kill you. And you actually see Shauna, like that human side of things kind of, it seems like it actually hurt. You know, because it almost seemed like, because she wanted Clark to kind of choose her, but it's like, because I'm sure in Clark's mind it's kind of like, no, what I'm doing is I'm freeing you essentially if I put you down. It's kind of interesting because it's actually something Tim ends up talking about, and I didn't realize that because she had brought it up before. Shauna, the whole like aspect of like, oh yeah, I thought this little bit of humanity was supposed to just be kind of like a passing thing as it like flickered out, but it's still there because Amy talked about the fact that she can feel everyone in the Project Noah building. So it goes like, okay, so is that, I guess that's not just her in general. I mean, I guess maybe not, unless that's supposed to just be her specific thing, like her being the most empathetic of all of them, like her empathy ability is crazy off the charts. But I think that's probably how like they're in general able to tap into so many people, even those they haven't met. It's because they're connected to all of them. I guess it's like if you're in close enough radius, it gives you complete and utter control over people. Hence why, like, you know, Martinez was able to do what he was able to do, getting inside of Gilder's head like that. So like I said, I don't know if that's just 100% like an Amy thing, or is that just something, anything they can all do. It seemed like the way Tim was kind of talking like it's an all them type of thing. So it's kind of interesting to think like they're all tapped into this humanity situation, even though they're kind of cutting away at their humanity. Because the whole thing is about feeling too much. Because even in his state, Tim is still heartbroken about the whole Elizabeth situation. So that kind of speaks volumes on its own. But what was interesting is when it came down to it, Amy had a choice. Basically become a viral or die like Elizabeth. And it's kind of interesting and sad because like that choice is there left on the shoulders of a little girl, and it's like she has to be the one to make that decision. And when it came down to it, she lit the match and, you know, followed the flame. She remembered what her mom had said, what Brad had said to her, and she made her choice. She didn't go forward, she went backwards. And even Tim was like, what are you doing? And so we see her wake up, she seems normal, but at the end of the episode her eyes glow yellow. So it's like, okay, I think she's transforming, but once again Amy is something else entirely. Like I guess something mutated inside of her, so she is becoming a viral, but onto a whole other level. Rather than becoming like Tim, I think this might be a moment where we see her, like her doing that was probably her becoming a viral, but completely severing her ties from Tim. She's not bound to anyone. The only person she's bound to at this point is herself. She's the only viral connected to herself. Potentially, that might be the route they're going down with that. But once again, like she's been shown to be the only one with the ability, like her scream. Like none of the other virals has kind of presented an ability like that, kind of setting her apart from everybody else already. But literally, the clock is ticking down. Like, things are already kind of bad. All the virals ended up getting out of the cages. And now, here we are. Backed against the wall. Pretty much everything kind of ultimately screwed. I'm very interested to see where all this is going to take us going forward into the next episode. Because I'm sitting here thinking about it now, too. It's like, the whole point is the antiviral had to be gotten to her before she changed it and everything. But it's like, could it be something that could still be possible for her at this point in time? Like her situation is a little bit different, you know, could that, because obviously the antiviral was about helping her. Like it can't necessarily be used on any of the others because Tim would just kind of outright win. But to be fair, this is about obviously it's the crossing point for Amy at this point, but it's like, who's to say this can't be used to stop the others? I mean, there is no other way to stop the others. I mean, at the very least, they could stop the others, but if they stop Tim, that's the one thing that would kill the others and outright kill Amy. So I'm curious to see how they end up handling that. I'm wondering, like, I guess it would have to be a situation where, like, Amy would have to be the one to kill Tim for there not to be an issue. Also, like, what's going to happen on the outside of this whole Project Noah? Like, obviously, like, communication got shut down because of Gray, but it's like, when the truth comes out, like, when everyone else in, the government ends up finding out, the Department of Defense and stuff finds out about what went down here, I'm sure it's going to be a huge cover-up and all that, but still, like, How are they going to proceed with all of this? How will they go about covering up? Like I said, that's just me potentially thinking, because I feel like that's how these things typically might play out. But ultimately, like I said, we'll have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good